My name is Hyder and welcome to the Pantheon. The crypt is truly blown to pieces and the horrible, terrible things are coming out of Innistrad. And one of them is this fine fellow here, old Stickfingers. A black and a green and X. I'm a Golgari man myself, so I'm a big fan of this. It's a star horror, and when you cast a spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. Put all the creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Old Stickfingers' power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Now, my very first commander deck was Gerald Golgari Lichlord, and this guy, it's very reminiscent of that. But that ability is really, really quite cool. Just milling whatever you want. You can build the deck in a certain way if you so desire. So maybe you only have like 3 creatures in it. You pay X is 3. Put all of them in the graveyard. Maybe one of them's Necrotic. You bring it back, combo off. But that's not what I'm about. I'm about getting this guy as massive as possible. I just want an absolutely massive stick-fingered monstrosity. So please do join me to see how we're going to do that. But please subscribe as well. I'm going to be making one of these for every Midnight Hunt commander, and then beyond that, every other card ever printed. That's a legendary creature. So come and join me. Without further ado, let's have a look at my top 5. And in at number 5, what do we have? Well, this channel's called Cycling MTG, so let's do some cycling and fill up the graveyard to grow our commander with that. Titanoth Rex, or, Godzilla, if you get that version, is a 9-mana 11/11 trampler, and you cycle it for 2 mana. When you cycle it, put a trample counter on target creature you control. Ooh, now that is so cool with our commander. So we cycle this, we draw a card, best mechanic ever printed, and then it grows our commander. But that trample counter going onto our commander, it's all great having, a 50-50, but if it's just being chump blocked by 1/1s, it's not that great. So giving our commander trample, fantastic, and we're growing him at the same time with cycling. Truly the best thing that's ever happened. To go along with this, Archfiend of Ifnir is wonderful, 5-mana 5/4 flyer. Just great by itself. When you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. And cycling, for 2 mana. So, a little board wipe built in. If you're going for a big sort of discard theme, this card is just phenomenal. Controls the board, controls your opponents as well. Then Elvish Aberration, 6-mana 4/5. Taps for 3 green mana. This is the sort of ramp you really need in a deck. You get to 6 mana and you just want to get to 9. But this is good because in the late game, command attacks, our commander's going to get killed. This can tap for a ton of mana to be able to allow us to cast our commander and just grow him even more. And it's got forest cycling, so you can go and get that, bayou, if you're lucky enough to have one, or just a forest. Or, one underground tomb, overgrown tomb, oh, not underground river. Then, Undead Gladiator, 3 mana for a 3/1. Pay 2, discard a card, return it from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only during your upkeep. So that's really cool if you've got, a big sort of reanimation target in your hand. You can discard it to get it back. And then you can cycle this again to dig even deeper into the deck, grow your commander by putting it in. Wonderful card, works fantastically with him. Street Wraith, the best, turn 0 play imaginable. 5 mana, 3/4, Swamp Walk. And it's got cycling, pay 2 life, so you don't even have to pay mana. You can just grow your commander just by paying 2 life. Woohoo! +1/+1 for 2 life. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'd take that. Then, with all the cycling sort of shenanigans, we could play Abandoned Sarcophagus. 3 mana artifact, you may cast spells that have cycling ability from your graveyard. If a card that has cycling ability would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, and it wasn't cycled, exile it instead. So this is going to generate a nice bit of value. We can cast all the things we cycled early game, and if our commander's dumped a bunch of things into the graveyard, we can abandon Sarcophagus, some of them back. Then there's Corrosion Tusker, the green divination. 7 mana 6/5, cycling for 3, so discard it, draw a card. Whenever you cycle it, you may search your library for a basic land, reveal that card, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. So you're always getting card advantage and lands to be able to play, which is good with our commander because it can be quite mana intensive. Which brings me on to less cycle-related things, but still good stuff nonetheless. In at number 4, we've got Blex, the Vexing Pest. Now, 3 mana for a 3/2. Other pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders you control get +1/+1. Now our commander isn't any of them. And when Blex dies, you gain 4 life. Who really cares about that? The reason I want to play things like this is because on the flip side, we've got something that the deck wants. So on the flip side of Blex, we've got Search for Blex. 4 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put any number of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You lose 3 life for each card that put into your graveyard, your hand this way. So yes, it can be very painful, but this can be a potentially 1 card draw 5. And that's the cool thing about these cards. Off the stack, you know, when we're not casting it as a sorcery, this just counts as a creature because Blex is a creature. So if it's in the graveyard after we've cast the Search for Blex, it'll count towards our commanders, you know, getting bigger, which is really, really cool. And I love little intricacies of deck building like this. Murderous Rider, another great example, 3 mana, 2/3, and you could have an instant Swift End for 3 mana, destroy target creature or planeswalker. You lose 2 life. Absolutely fantastic. It's removal, but it counts as a creature in our graveyard, in wherever you want, you know, in all other zones. And it's a lifelink. It's a lifelink, and when it dies, put it into the bottom of its owner's library. So really, really cool. Yes, okay, if it just dies, we're not going to be growing our commander, but it's a removal spell that's a creature in the graveyard. Really, really awesome. Then there's Beanstalk Giant. 7 mana for a star, so its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Should be quite a lot. We're a green deck. We're going to be ramping a lot. And Fertile Footsteps, speaking of ramp. 3 mana for a sorcery, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So this is a ramp spell that when it dies, it adds a point of toughness and power to our commander. Then we've got a couple of lands here, Tangled Florahedron. 2 mana for a 1/1, taps for a green. So a nice just generic mana dork. So you can really get up there to cast your commander. Or you can play it for a land. So it takes up a land slot and adds to the overall creature count of the deck. Then there's Kazandu Mammoth. 3 mana for a 3/3 with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So potentially, if we've got a lot of sort of ramp spells, things like that, this could be a threat by itself. But on the flip side, it is just a land if you need that land early or whenever you want. Then we've got Grist the Hunger Tide. A horrible image there. Just look at that skull with all those horrible sort of cotton candy plumes coming off in. 3 mana. And as long as it isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. So if it goes to the graveyard, it adds a point of power and toughness, which is, you know, a theme of this. And then +1, create a 1/1 black and green insect token, then mill a card. If an insect card is milled this way, put a loyalty counter on Grist and repeat this process. I don't think we're going to be milling too many insects, to be quite honest with you. But -2, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. A bit of removal, excellent. And then -5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. That could just be game ending with this commander because we could just dump a ton of mana into our commander, mill loads of stuff, get Grist back or cast Grist and, you know, ultimate it, kill everyone. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And now that we've got all those creatures into the graveyard, well, let's have a few other things that are good with that, like Multivore. I love this card. 4 mana for a star. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. And you can pay a single black to regenerate it. So if it would be destroyed, tap it instead and, you know, it survives. Fantastic. And this is going to be absolutely massive because not only does it count our graveyard, which is going to be stocked full of creatures, but it counts everyone. So this is just going to be enormous. Then, speaking of enormous, we've got Lord of Extinction. 5 mana for a star. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in all graveyards, not just creatures, all cards. Phenomenal. This is going to be a 50-50, 80-80. It's going to be ridiculous. And it's so, so good. Then we've got Sewer Nemesis, 4 mana star. As it enters the battlefield, choose a player. Choose me. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in the chosen player's graveyard. So we're going to have quite a few, so it's going to be massive. And whenever we cast a spell, or the chosen player, which is us, that player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So a nice bit of mill, keeps growing, keeps going. Absolutely amazing. And this is probably my favorite card in the entirety of Magic. It exemplifies everything I love about Magic, and it got me into the game. Splinter Fright, 3 mana star, trample. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So When I first saw this, I was like, ooh, that's cool. Let's build around that. But then it hints at what you should be doing by, at the beginning of your upkeep, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. So it's a self-perpetuating engine. It's fantastic. I love it. I just love it. Great, great card. Then there's Necrogoyf. 5 mana, star 4. Bit weird. Its power is equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards, so exactly what we want to be doing. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player discards a card. So not only are we going to be able to fill our graveyard, maybe we could play some madness cards if you're really going mental, but we're going to be affecting our opponent's game plan, slowly whittling them down. And this itself has madness, so if we get discarding it, maybe to, some kind of a wheel effect, we can cast this for a cheaper rate. Then these last 2 cards are not exactly massive, but they work really well with all these cards we just talked about. Brawl's the Scar Stripes, 3 mana for a Troll Warrior 2/2. Each creature card in your graveyard has Scavenge. Scavenge cost is equal to its mana cost. And sacrifice another creature, regenerate Brawl's the Scar Stripe. So regeneration shield, nice sacrifice outlet in case someone's pointing at like an exile removal spell or a commander or something. Then there's Boneyard Mycodrax. What a weird word that is. 3 mana for a Star Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of other creatures in your graveyard. And it'll scavenge for 5. So the cool thing about these star creatures and the star 4 up there, weirdo Necro guy, is the way the stars work is that is in every single zone. So when it's in the graveyard, say we have 20 creature cards in our graveyard, this is going to be a 20/20. So for 5 mana, we put that on. And that works exactly the same with Virals for all of our other creatures. We can just dump a bunch of counts onto whatever we want. Turn our mana dork into a massive idiot. Really, really, really nice. Which brings me on to my number 2 pick. And at number 2, well, I talked a bit earlier, this is an X cost commander and we want to make as much mana as we possibly can. So Cryptghast and its ilk are incredible for that. 4 mana 2/2 with Extort, so whenever you cast a spell, you may pay a black or a white. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. So a nice little pinger can end games. And whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add black to your mana pool, in addition to the mana the land produced. So this works fantastically with Urborg, which makes everything into a swamp. And this gets you up into the massive amounts of mana. And then you can just cast a colossal commander. It'll mill the majority of your deck. Start swinging. Amazing. And the cool thing about this commander is, a lot of decks like this really stumble to, exiling the graveyard. But itself is an engine. You pay 20 mana into it, you get 20, and all your graveyard's filled again. It's fantastic. Then there's Nirkana? Nikana? I don't know. Revenant, 6 mana 4/4. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional black. Then pay a black, it gets +1 on until end of turn. So absolutely fantastic what you want to be doing. Then there's Mana Reflection, 6 mana for an enchantment. If you tap opponent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. So that works for all of your lands, all of your mana rocks, everything. This is going to generate tons of mana. And all of these are about the late game. Early game, you want to be sort of getting your commander out, maybe milling 1 or 2, and then growing, through a couple of sort of mill cards, that sort of thing, cycling. But late game, you want to slap one of these down and then untap next turn, play a massive 14 mana commander, and then just mill everything. You've got loads of value off it. Finally, we got Regal Behemoth. 6 mana 5/5 with Trample. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. So you draw a card at the end of your turn, and if someone deals combat damage to you, they become the Monarch and you can get it back. Blah, 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 blah. Whoop, whoop. And whenever you tap a land for mana while you're the Monarch, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool, so doubles all of your lands. Fantastic with this, and it's just a great card. And it isn't a lizard anymore. It's a dinosaur. That's cute, isn't it? But that brings me on to my number 1 selection. And in at number 1, well, we've got ways to kill our opponents with a colossal commander or just one of our other massive creatures. My favourite, my original first ever deck, Jared Golgari Lich Lord. 4 mana for a 2/2. It gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard, so it does exactly what all the big idiots are doing. Pay 3, sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. So if you have, a 30/30 commander, which is very doable in this deck, sacrifice it to Jared. They lose 30 life. Amazing. So great. Your opponents can be a bit salty about it. I mean, I've lived that. But Sacrifice a swamp and a forest, return Jared from your graveyard to your hand. So if he gets killed, you just bring him back. If he's milled into the graveyard with a commander, we can get him back. Amazing. It's so, so good. Jared is just phenomenal. It's such a game ender. I love him. Then we got Rite of Consumption. 2 mana for a sorcery. His additional cost to play Rite of Consumption. God, I've mangled that word. Rite of Consumption. Sacrifice a creature. It deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target player. So you can just one-shot one person and you gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. So you just yo-yo your life total massively up and someone's dead. Brilliant. And the artwork's really nice as well. Look at that poor tree. It's got like a fire thing around it. Terrible. Terrible. Things people do. Then there's Altar of Dementia. 2 mana for an artifact, which is great against your opponents, but also for us because sacrifice a creature, target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of their library into their graveyard. So potentially late game, because our commander is an X spell, you can just play it for the green and the black. So, if it's died once, it's, 4 mana thanks to the commander tax. But you just play the green and the black, and then the 2 extra, you get your commander out. Sacrifice, mill 30. Then you pay 6, sacrifice another 30. You now go to draw, you die. This card is phenomenal. In early game, we can just sacrifice our creatures to mill us. Just grow and grow and grow. So, so good in the deck. Then we got Zen. Xanthrid Demon. 6 mana 7/7 with flying and trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature other than Xanthrid Demon. Then each opponent loses life equals the sacrificed creature's power. If you can't sacrifice a creature, tap it and you lose 7 life. So if our commander's on the field or just one of our massive creatures, this is going to be doming people. It's just like a bigger version of Jared. Amazing. Amazing. Not as good as Jared, but what is in life, really. Then these are a couple of just cool cards that are great with massive creatures. And Mausoleum Secrets, well, it's great with a massive graveyard. Double 2 mana for an instant. Undergrowth. Search your library for a black card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Reveal it and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. So if you've got 16 creatures in your graveyard, you can search up that Draco I know you're going to put into this deck. And, just cast it. And it's an instant. So you can respond to whatever you want. Analyze the game. Gets to your opponent's end step. Let's go and get a game-winning card like Jared. And then bing, bang, bosh, you've just won the game. Then there's Momentous Fall. 4 mana for an instant, an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, so a 30/30 commander. You draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and then you gain life equal to its toughness. 30 cards, 30 life. You just can't turn that sort of value down, can you? It's amazing. Then there's Greater Good. 4 mana for an enchantment, sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to sacrifice creature's power, then discard 3 cards. Oh, discarding 3 cards. What a disaster. The awesome thing about this is if you get this early, you've got a couple of mana dorks, your line of RL, stuff like that. Sacrifice it, draw 1. Yes, you're discarding 3, so it's massive card disadvantage. But with our commander, for 2 mana, we can just get out a 10/10, sacrifice that, and then we're going to skyrocket our cards back up into the upper echelons of card advantage. And those are my top 5 cards for this brand new commander. Really, really cool. I wouldn't go down the combo route. I just think tons of creatures in your graveyard. It's very fun, Your opponents are going to exile them, but then just cast your commander for loads of mana, get them all out again. Really, really awesome. Give him trample with your cyclist. Wonderful. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon. Bye.